5 executive skills that you will need to be successful as your career progresses that you're not going to learn in school. With these skills that we're going to walk through, you're going to be able to be more effective, get more things done in less time. This is going to give you time back, which we all need, and also help you reduce stress and anxiety. So let's get into the skills. What are the 5 skills and how can they be effectively integrated into your professional life? Number 1 is setting healthy boundaries. This is where I see many people in technology go sideways, is they don't have a framework for how to set healthy boundaries. Part of healthy boundaries is you understanding and defining your limits, meaning how many hours can you work a day, for a week, for a month, for a quarter? How much rest and renewal do you need to be your effective self? It's important that you start asking yourself these questions and understanding these things to start setting healthy boundaries. So with healthy boundaries, you're going to maintain clarity and be able to articulate what you can and what you can't do. That's going to allow you better to integrate, for work to be integrated into your life. Clear boundaries are saying, when are you going to be available and not available? There are going to be times when you're not going to be available for work, and that's okay. And that's, again, creating a framework where you can start having these conversations. Oh, I'm not available when I get home at 5. I have dinner time with my family, and dinner time is sacred for us. I'm not going to be available for that 2 hours, right? Walking through and setting up some of those boundaries is really important. And this is the boundaries. This isn't the calendaring. We'll talk about that in a minute. But also, let's talk about vacations. So many people I know in tech would go and take vacations and still be checking email and still be plugged in. That's not having a healthy boundary. That's not saying I need to step away and I need to be offline. But this is where the boundary is really talking about when you're offline versus when you're online. And so you need to be able to have conversations. And this is why it's a skill. The first time you have this conversation, it's going to feel awkward. It's going to feel weird. And I know there were points at my career where I thought, is this even allowed? And I'm here to tell you, yes, this is allowed. Because all of these skills that I'm walking you through today will make you better for the company. And that's all of these, when they're asking for rationale, well, why you need to be unplugged? Why are you offline? It's because I need time to renew so that I can be my best self for this company. That's why it's so important. And so essentially, that's what boundaries are, is you are setting up these boundaries that say, here are my limits. And here's what I can do, and here's what I can't do. And you're having healthy conversations around that. And the more you learn that, the more you're going to be able to manage, because you're going to be able to get the rest and recovery on the backside that you need to be your more effective self. So right behind setting boundaries is managing up. Managing up is when you develop strategies to communicate and align with your manager, and sometimes your manager's manager, sometimes what's called your skip level, whoever is right above your manager. But developing strategies to align with them, and you want to make sure that you're getting mutual understanding, what they need, and they're understanding what you need. And taking that to the point where you can influence, again, they're your manager, so you're not going to be able to manage them, but you want to be able to influence them to ensure that they're helping support your boundaries, the things that you need for the team, etc. And so it's important that in this process, there's a lot of listening that's going on to understand what your manager is trying to accomplish, what their boss is trying to accomplish. If you can understand 2 levels up what your management is trying to accomplish, you essentially want to get aligned with them. You want to get aligned and understand what your team is doing that's helping them be successful. This is a concept that I called aligned leverage, meaning that you can be partnering with your manager and their manager to help them win. And then a lot of that benefit is coming back to you and your team, because you're being seen as somebody who is helping the entire team win up and down the chain. So for example, and when I was at Splunk, there was a large quoting project. We were replacing the tool inside of Salesforce.com to do quoting, to do pricing. And the result of this, the desired result, was to increase quoting speed by 25% across the enterprise. This was something that had a lot of, my boss, the chief information officer, reported to the CEO, Godfrey Sullivan. Godfrey was very focused on meeting that goal. So then that was very important to my boss, who his name was Doug Haar. And those gentlemen, when I was meeting and I was reading out on that report, they were very supportive of that. And as I was able to then share with my boss what was some of the things that were maybe detracting or some of the things I needed help with, he could fly air cover, he could support me in what I needed in the rest of my book of business to make sure that I was successful. So this is why this concept of managing up is critical. And I think setting boundaries, managing up, if those are just two things that you're doing right outside of the gate when you're getting started in your executive career, that will help you tremendously. But don't stop there. Keep going. Number 3 is calendar time blocking. And this is offensive and defensive. So let me break this down for you. You want to make sure that you are blocking your calendar with the things that you're doing for the company and also when you have time that you need for yourself. It's essential. If you do not manage your calendar, somebody else is going to manage it for you. What I mean is people are going to start shoehorning in your calendar. Now, the feedback people give me, this false concern, this false expectation appearing real, this fear of, well, wait, if I'm blocking off all my time, then will I not be available to people? And of course you want to be available to people, but you need to make sure that it works for you. You need to protect your time and you need to be an asset. If you're a commodity and you are always available and you're always online, people are not going to see your time as valuable. But the more you have all of the things that you need to do to be the most productive executive that you can, and to also be your best self showing up for the company, and you provide people the opportunity to get time when it's convenient for you, that is the most effective that you can be. Now, again, taking this with a grain of salt, this means that you want to make sure that when you do have your manager or manager's manager, they know when are the time slots that you have flexibility, that when you're available, over communicate that to them. But when it's everybody else in the organization, then you want to make sure that you're managing that and you're feeding it into a Calendly link where they have very specific access for very specific amount of time. And you also want to make sure that people are getting on your calendar for a reason that is going to help you move your workday, move your projects forward. But don't let people rein in and take over your calendar. So defensive time blocking is saying, here's the times when I'm not going to be available for work or anything. That's defense. You're taking care of yourself, making sure that you're going to be in the best state possible to work. Offensive is where you're putting in all of the things that you need to move the ball forward, to move your work forward. You're putting all of those things on the calendar. And then you're leaving open very strategic locations for people if they need time with you. I would also encourage you, going back up to boundary setting, saying, if you want my time, I would love to see the agenda first. I want to understand if somebody else from my team needs to be there, or what are we trying to accomplish in this time together, so that the expectation of what's needed from me is crystal clear. My target was always to get a rolling 2 weeks, meaning I want to have 2 weeks. And as I'm closing off this week, I'm doing not next week, but the following week. I'm constantly filling that out, because what I found, I guess this is the cheat code for tech, is things many times are moving so fast that people don't look really beyond 2 weeks in your calendar. That's how it worked for me. The other one is the startup and shutdown ritual. So ritual, not routine. Ritual meaning this is something that you do all the time, and you break it down into these comprehensive steps so that you can be prepared to perform. So the concept of ritual comes from a lot of high performance sports training, where you see players before games, before matches, they prepare in the same way every time to ensure that they're ready to perform their best. There's been a lot of data to support this, but if you create a systematic way to start your work day, and I want to make sure I'm talking about a work startup and shutdown ritual. I'm not talking about a morning routine. I'm not talking about ice baths. I'm not talking about journaling or meditation. I'm saying you are sitting down in the morning, you sit down every day, and you look over what are your list of priorities for the quarter. And you're putting on your list of things to do. Here's the top 3 things I want to get done today that align to that list. You are deciding how and when you're going to get your deep work done. you are then, taking time to look through your calendar and making sure that everything on your calendar makes sense. And if it doesn't, you're deleting it. That is then the morning ritual. And then you have in the evening, you have that ritual that you're shutting down. So you're, again, taking 30 minutes at the end of the day to do any final emails, to get a dump of list of things for tomorrow. And at the end, you're making a declaration that I'm done from work for the day, and you're shutting it down. If you put these on both ends of your day, it accomplishes a few things. Number one is when you're going into the day, you are preparing yourself to be at your best because you know what's going to be right in front of you. You know what you need to focus on. And as an executive, things can be so distracting. You can be pulled in different directions and there can be escalations and different things. And you're constantly being asked to evaluate what is the most important. And if you have already done this work and you're consistently doing this work of, what is important and urgent that I need to get done? Okay, that's urgent, but that's not important. Okay, delegate that. So this function of rituals is preparing mentally for the performance of each day. And that's essentially what you're doing as an executive. You want to go in there and perform your best every day to move the ball forward for the team. And when you optimize these, you can then start performing at a high level consistently over time. There's many studies that have shown that executives that are able to set good boundaries, manage their calendars, and have these rituals set up report lower stress levels. And a lot of this stuff can increase your productivity by up to 50%. These are some studies being done on boundary setting and calendar blocking. All of this stuff is super, super effective. And these are the types of things that are going to move the ball forward for you. The result is you're going to become more balanced. Now, let's not forget, what's the fifth one? The fifth one is you got to unplug. You have to make sure that there is a period of time in every single week, look at the week, that you can unplug. Then how do you actually create some of those moments every single day that you can really realistically unplug? And I think the easiest way to explain this is there's the very classic story of two lumberjacks. There were two lumberjacks that lived close to each other, and one day they decided to have a wood chopping contest, and they wanted to see that who could chop the most wood in an 8-hour period. So lumberjack number one, he goes at it and he is just chopping wood, and he blows through the first hour. He's going into the second hour. And as he is going into hour number two, he looks over and he sees lumberjack number two at the end of the first hour take a break. Then, as he gets to hour three, lumberjack, he looks over and he sees the lumberjack at the end of hour two take another break. And this continues to go on all day where, lumberjack one, he took a little bit of time in the middle, crammed down some food, but he just chopped all day. He said, I'm just going to chop my way through it. Where the lumberjack number two took breaks every hour, and then he actually took a lunch break. And when they got to the end of the day, lumberjack number two had chopped almost twice as much wood as lumberjack number one. Lumberjack number one was amazed and asked lumberjack number two, what exactly happened? You're taking these breaks all the time. What happened? How did you beat me? And lumberjack two looked at him and he said, well, what you were calling a break, you probably didn't notice, but I was taking time and I was sharpening my axe. And as knowledge workers, our axe is our mind. We work with our mind, we're thinking machines. And if we're just grinding every day and we're putting ourselves in situations where we're not physically healthy, we're under mental and emotional duress, we're not going to be great for our teams or the people around us. This is why being able to completely unplug is so important and so critical. And all of these things that I've just walked you through, right? Setting the boundaries, managing up the calendar and time blocking, the startup shutdown ritual, and unplugging your mind, all of these things, the benefits of them are you're going to be able to be a very well-balanced professional. You're going to have a lot of skills in your toolbox that you're going to be able to execute with. You're going to find that you're going to manage your stress a lot better. You're going to be able to be more effective with your time, and your daily focus and energy will go up. The one thing that I found in my career is that the more I took care of my physical health and my mental health, the more I showed up with my team. I brought more energy. I was able to be focused on what they needed, whether it was an emotional need, whether it was an intellectual need, whatever they needed to help them move forward. So those are the 5 things. That's how to get started. I think setting healthy boundaries. go and take some time and start putting some boundaries in your calendar, start putting those boundaries in your life. Put down the technology, go and find some time to get focused, renew, and do those things for yourself. Manage up. This is strategically going to set you up to be able to have your career ascend, and also just, again, staying aligned and making sure that you're doing the things that are most important for yourself and for the company. I know that there was a lot of value in that for you. I'd be interested to understand which one was most interesting. So please feel free to send me an email at ask@techcareersandmoneytalk.com. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Goodbye.